Dr. Sharma, can you talk a little bit about relative and ultimate truth in the Hindu tradition?
Well, Matilda, before talking about it in the Hindu or Buddhist tradition, let us talk about it in real life. You see that table? Yeah? What is the ultimate truth about this table? That it is made of subatomic particles, and that these particles are moving around in zones which have empty spaces in them, but disappear solid. So the ultimate truth of this table is that it is made of subatomic particles with empty spaces within them. And the relative truth is that it's a solid object. What I'm trying to say is that it sounds a very philosophical idea, but it's a very commonsensical one. Even more than this, when you came to the Burke's building today, maybe from the metro, did you allow for the curvature of the earth while you were walking? No. Now you accept the fact that the earth is a sphere. But you treated it as flat. The relative truth was that it was flat. The ultimate truth is that it's a sphere. You made no special efforts to protect yourself from rolling off its surface because it's a sphere. We decided to meet at 2, which is afternoon, in the afternoon. Morning, noon, afternoon, evening. All of these are determined by the movement of the sun around the earth from sunrise to sunset. But I ask you, does the sun go around the earth, or does the earth go around the sun?
The earth goes around the sun.
That is the ultimate truth. Living our life on the basis of relative truth. That the sun goes around the earth. So, these two levels are around us everywhere. So now we come to their use in Hinduism. The question, philosophical question which arises is, what is the relationship of the relative to the ultimate? Or vice versa. Can you fathom it? This is made of subatomic particles, really. But apparently, it's a solid object. Really, the earth is going around the sun. Apparently, the sun is going around the earth. Really, the earth is a sphere. Apparently, it is flat. How do we relate these two? The Hindu answer to the question is, I hang on to both. I do not know how exactly they are to be related. This relationship is unfathomable. I call it Maya. Inexplicable. In some sense, ultimately inexplicable. So the basic issue in some forms of Hinduism, philosophical forms of Hinduism, is that according to their understanding, and understanding of the sages of the school and all, the ultimate reality about this universe is that everything is undivided and one. You might call it non-dual or ultimate unity of some kind. The apparent world is full of diversity. The objects are diverse. We as individuals are diverse. Objects and individuals are diverse. I mean, this, what we would regard as the most fundamental characteristic of empirical life is diversity. And what they claim to be the most fundamental feature of the ultimate reality is its indivisibility. How do we hang on to these two together simultaneously? Yeah? How do we hold these two together? And that's is the principle of Maya, which makes something appear as something else. How it does that, we don't know, really. But it does that, and we have to deal with it. So it's the real issue. If you have an illusion, where does it lie? Where does it come about? The standard example is the rope and the snake, right? So the rope appears to you as the snake because of certain reasons. Where does the illusion lie? Is it in me? Is it in the rope? Is it in between? And where does it arise? Does it arise from the rope? Does it arise from me? Arise from the interaction? These questions have been debated endlessly within the tradition in relationship to the universe and the ultimate reality, Brahman. Now we come to the most interesting part of this, and intellectually the most challenging. Is the distinction between relative and ultimate truth relative or ultimate? It is relative. And so ultimately, what are you only left with the ultimate? I think we've gone, yeah.
So does that, I mean, going back a little bit to the conversation about whether, okay, so how do I frame this? I think my question is, I've often heard Maya having negative connotations, like Maya is deception. You know, maybe that has to do if the origin of Maya is within one's own self, or that illusion is within one's own self, maybe that has more sort of negative connotations. But isn't there also a kind of thought that Maya, it doesn't necessarily have to be kind of bad?
You see, Maya is just there in some sense. Whether it is good or bad is a value judgment which will depend on the situation. Now, for instance, if you believe in the idea that there is an ultimate reality which is being concealed from us by Maya, if we put it that way, then Maya is coming in the way. Because you have a goal. That makes you see Maya as something coming in your way. So it has a negative connotation. Yeah? But if you say, I have to go to that goal through this this is my opening to the ultimate reality, it becomes a positive thing. This fact about Maya essentially being value neutral is a very important fact to grasp because it is often overlooked. Because Maya is brought into the discussion in a context in which one is seeking spiritual enlightenment, and it's perceived as an obstacle to that enlightenment, we have a negative view of Maya. But in itself, Maya is neutral. Let me try to explain this with another example. One of the standard metaphors used for describing Maya is a mirage. So now we are in a desert and we are thirsty and we see a mirage. And we go there in search of water and we find nothing and we are disappointed. Understandably. Now, scenario 2. We are not thirsty and we are in a desert and we see a mirage. We are thunderstruck that in a place where there is no water, you see a lake, you see trees surrounding it. So now our major sentiment is not disappointment, but wonder. Is the same Maya, same mirage. So depending on how one is, if you are, in terms of the search for truth, if you want something from this world, which is compared to the mirage, and you're not going to get it the way you want according to this worldview, then you blame the world. But if you don't want anything from the world, say the miraculous. There is only one ultimate reality which is undivided, and look at all this. Fantastic. So I think it very much depends on the frame of reference within which Maya finds its place, either doctrinally or personally.
So that leads me to another question that I have, and which is that in Buddhism I know that the question of what the Buddha sees, or how the Buddha sees the world, or a Buddha sees the world, is really problematic, or it's really hotly debated. And in terms of, because if your realization is only on this sort of ultimate, the absolute truth, then how do you even operate in the world? And what you were saying just led me to that question: is that an issue in Hinduism? You know, that's the kind of liberation or awakening would cause problems in the relative world, or?
No, awakening in the relative world, the fact that one is realized doesn't mean that the world is ours. One sees the real nature of the world. Just as when you realize that the mirage is a mirage, the mirage doesn't disappear. You realize its true nature. And the point I was making earlier was that if you are thirsty, you are not likely to realize its true nature because you expect something from it. And you are too much into disappointment to analyze it. Yeah. Okay. So now to come directly to your question, in Hinduism, this is viewed within its own framework, but it's a very interesting parallel. You have the rope, and you have it being imagined as a snake, and you have the person who is imagining it. Right? Now, the rope by itself can be compared to the ultimate reality, Brahman. Then it is regarded as Nirguna Brahman, without any attributes, totally outside the world, just as the rope is totally outside the snake. That's Nirguna Brahman. As the basis for the rope, for the snake, the aspect of the rope is called Saguna Brahman. Same rope, perceived only as the rope, is Nirguna Brahman. Perceived as the basis for the illusion of the snake is Saguna Brahman, same rope. When it is perceived as the basis for the Saguna Brahman, then now it becomes related to the world. The ultimate reality is now related to the world. The world is related to ultimate reality. Only in that sense you can say that the ultimate reality is related to the world. Otherwise, is there any snake from the point of view of the rope? None. Buddha is the Buddha. It is whatever. Okay? Now you have the person who is looking at the rope. He realizes that it is not a snake. The moment he realizes that, he or she, it vanishes. This is where the imagery of the mirage becomes helpful. This is not exactly what happens when we realize. It's more like the mirage. You realize that it is a mirage. The mirage doesn't disappear. Your illusory perception of the mirage disappears. So when you are in this world, the realized person sees you, himself, me, all of us. But he also sees the ground of all this, transcending all this, yet the basis for all this. The rope. So this might help us deal with the question here about the Buddha.